He wasn't the loudest voice. He didn't have the smoothest notes. But when he sang, the world stopped to listen. This is the story of Bob Dylan, the boy who became a voice for the voiceless, the man who sang when others stayed silent, a poet, a prophet, a puzzle. But who was he? Really? Stay with me, because this isn't just music history. This is American history told through a guitar string. By the end of this story, you'll see why millions still believe that one song can change the world. Born Robert Allen Zimmerman on May 24, 1941, in Duluth, Minnesota, Dylan grew up in the working-class town of Hibbing. His father sold electrical appliances and life was modest. The world around him was cold, quiet, and predictable. But Robert wasn't like the other kids. He was restless, curious, obsessed with sounds that didn't belong in Minnesota: blues, gospel, folk, the music of struggle and soul. At night, he'd hide under his blanket with a radio, tuning into distant stations from New Orleans, Chicago, and Memphis. The voices of Muddy Waters, Hank Williams, and Woody Guthrie crackled through the static and into his heart. At just 10 years old, he wrote his first poems. At 15, he started playing in local bands. His classmates thought he was odd, always scribbling lyrics, always mumbling tunes. But something inside him was growing louder than the cold silence of Hibbing. Suspense beat. What would happen if this boy left everything he knew to chase the music only he could hear? In 1961, Robert Zimmerman took a train to New York City. He had barely any money, but he had a guitar and a dream. In the bohemian cafes of Greenwich Village, he rechristened himself Bob Dylan, borrowing the name from the poet Dylan Thomas. He played for spare change, slept on couches, listened more than he spoke. But when he sang, people leaned in. His voice was raw, unpolished, but real. He met Woody Guthrie, his childhood hero, who was dying in a hospital bed. Bob played for him, and for America, the songs of Dust and Dignity. In 1962, he released his debut album. It sold poorly. Critics dismissed him. But Dylan didn't care. He wasn't here to please. In 1963, he wrote "Blowin' in the Wind." How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? The song exploded. Civil rights leaders, college students, and factory workers all claimed it as an anthem. Dylan wasn't just a songwriter anymore. He was a voice. The early 60s were a storm. America was divided by war, by race, by fear. And in the middle of the chaos stood a man with tangled curls and a guitar. Dylan sang about things no one on the radio dared mention. Civil rights in "The Times They Are A-Changin'." Nuclear terror in "A Hard Rain's A Gonna Fall." The assassination of Medgar Evers in "Only a Pawn in Their Game." He sang at the March on Washington. He stood beside Martin Luther King Jr. But Dylan was uneasy with the word leader. He said, "I'm just a guy with a guitar." Emotional beat. He never wanted to be a hero, but sometimes heroes don't get to choose. By 1965, he was the most powerful protest singer alive. Then, he did the unthinkable. At the Newport Folk Festival, Bob Dylan walked on stage with an electric guitar. The crowd stared. This wasn't folk. This wasn't protest. This was rock and roll. When he played "Like a Rolling Stone," the audience booed. Folk purists felt betrayed. His acoustic fans were furious. Dylan had gone commercial, they said. But Dylan didn't flinch. He reinvented himself again. His lyrics became more abstract. His music turned experimental. He recorded Highway 61 Revisited and Blonde on Blonde, groundbreaking albums that pushed rock into poetry. Then, in 1966, just when he reached the peak of fame, he vanished. Dylan had a mysterious motorcycle crash near Woodstock, New York. The details were never clear. Some say he was badly injured. Others believe he used it as an excuse to escape the pressure, the fame, the madness. For nearly 2 years, he disappeared from the spotlight. When he returned, it wasn't as a protest singer or a rock rebel, but as a country crooner with Nashville Skyline. Gone were the political anthems. Gone was the anger. Fans were confused. Critics were split. But Dylan didn't explain, because Bob Dylan never followed the rules. He broke them and made his own. In the 70s, Dylan kept changing, releasing new sounds, new identities. He married, had children, divorced, and returned with the fiery Blood on the Tracks, one of his most emotional records ever. Then, in 1979, another shock. Bob Dylan became a born-again Christian. He stopped playing old hits. Instead, he sang gospel, songs about Jesus, songs that confused his longtime fans. Critics slammed him, concertgoers booed again, but Dylan didn't back down. He believed in the message. He believed in the music. But eventually, he moved on again. By the 80s, many said Dylan was finished, washed up, a relic. But Bob Dylan, he was just warming up. Dylan kept touring, album after album, reinvention after reinvention. In the 90s, he released Time Out of Mind, a haunting meditation on death and time. It won multiple Grammys. In 2012, President Obama awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In 2016, Bob Dylan was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature, the first songwriter in history to receive it. The Nobel Committee called him a poet who created new poetic expressions within the great American song tradition. At first, Dylan didn't even attend the ceremony. He mailed in a speech written with the same mysterious eloquence that defined his songs. Even in his 70s, he toured relentlessly, over 100 shows a year. His voice was gravel, but the soul remained. Bob Dylan had become something no one expected, a timeless oracle, still walking his own road. Bob Dylan's music lives in every American decade, from the marches of the 60s to the chaos of today. His words are carved into the heart of American identity. Songs like Blowin' in the Wind, The Times They Are A-Changin', Mr. Tambourine Man, Knockin' on Heaven's Door. Each is a time capsule, a truth bomb, a prayer. And for the 50-plus audience watching this, maybe you remember when you first heard his voice, maybe you remember how it made you feel, seen, understood, brave. And for the younger ones listening today, remember, Bob Dylan didn't just write music, he wrote history. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of your youth, your struggle, your America, then don't let it end here. Go listen to Bob Dylan's songs, not just for the melody, but for the meaning. Share this video with someone who needs to know what real music sounds like. Leave a comment below. Tell us your favorite Dylan lyric and what it means to you. Because stories like his, they're not just entertainment. They're a reminder that one man, one voice, one guitar can change the world. This was the story of Bob Dylan, the poet who never stopped singing. And his words, they're still blowing in the wind.